Okay. So we are starting module 4, and some of the visualizations that we're going to look at, okay, are covered in the storytelling book as well. To what are the features that you need to look for in each of these visualizations, and the different visualizations and how to build them is in the Tableau Your Data book. So chapter 2 from storytelling book and chapter 3 from the TYD book. That's what you should be reading. Okay, and so there is a Word document that I have added, and this one covers only text table. So now I'll be adding more documents as we get through this. And then of course this is the file that we've already been using, so you already have it. You don't have to download it again. You already have it, so you need to use this one. Okay. All right, so let's start with connecting to Superstore data. Okay, let me bring in orders. Okay. All right, so let's start with a simple text table. Okay, so regions. Okay, let's have so we put some dimensions. So regions in column, right? And we have a product category and product subcategory, so like that. Okay, so now we have a template for a text table. Now when we have a table in this form, when we have a dimension going as columns, then it only makes sense to use one measure in the table. Okay, so like sales. So if you bring in sales to text, then you have sales. Okay, but if you bring in one more measure, that will make the text table too messy, and it's not very useful. Say for example, if I bring in profit also here, then you end up with 2 numbers for each cell, and it becomes kind of messy. It's not very helpful. Okay. So when you have dimensions going both ways, row wise as well as column wise, then you should really use, even though technically it is possible to use more than one measure inside the table, it's not a good idea. You use only one measure. So I'll remove the profit, but you can use a second measure to highlight the text. Okay. Now we will come to that in just a second. And one more thing about text tables. Text tables are very good in documents that you prepare. Okay, print a document or things like that, where you send the report, like for example, to somebody else, and they have the report and they look at it and then so on. But in a presentation, okay, text tables are not a very good idea because there is too much stuff for people to read through. So you shouldn't rely on text tables for face-to-face presentation type of situation. But if you want to use it, then you should really focus on the important points in the table and highlight them differently, and don't require your audience to be able to read through the whole thing. That's impossible to read through everything, right? So text tables, you have to be really careful when you're using it in a live presentation, but it's okay, you know, in reports and and things like that. All right. So we can now add totals and subtotals to this table. Okay, so we have product category and product subcategory. By the way, you can increase the, well, we will come to that. So we can increase the width. It's kind of okay like that. Yeah, you have to go like that. Okay, let's see how to improve this basic text table just as we go along. All right, so you want to add, say, totals, right? So go to analysis, and we have totals, and so these are the options you have. So you have row grand total, then column. So the default is row total will appear on the right and column totals will appear at the bottom. But if you want to put it at the top or in the on the left, then you can choose these two options. Okay. So now these are only grand totals, like it puts grand total for the entire row, and you have column grand totals. Okay, so you have that here. Okay. But you do not have subtotals, and for that you need to go here, add all subtotals. So now you have the subtotals. Okay. Now we can format the text table, right, by going to format, and here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different options. Okay, we'll look at the reference line and all the other things later. For right now, these are the items with which we can format the table, right. So you go to font. So now you have format font pane here. Okay. To get rid of this pane, you just have to click X. So then that's gone. So go back. So now the different format options, are also listed here. Okay. So like alignment, so that's alignment, shading, borders, and lines. Okay. So you don't have to go back to format. You can just simply click one of these tabs to scroll around. Okay. So now here are the options that you have for font. This is only for font, right? So this will affect the entire worksheet, okay, and so on. So this will affect only the pane, only the header, the title, and the tooltip. Tooltip is when you hover, then you have the tooltip. So that's what tooltip. We'll talk more about tooltip a little later on. Okay, so let's just try some of these out. Okay, see what's going on here. So, like for example, if I click bold, okay, so now, well, the bold is not appearing properly. All right, so worksheet. Let's say we change the font size. So now you see that everything in the worksheet changes. Okay. So what you set here for worksheet affects everything in the sheet. Okay. Now when you look at pane, so now I just changed the color. You see this is the pane. Okay, so it doesn't affect the labels, product category, or region, or anything like that. So it just affects the pane inside. And header, again the same thing. So if you, okay, so now you see all the headers change, not the pane. So header and pane together is your worksheet. Okay, so tooltip is, now we'll talk about tooltip a little later. After we have talked about tooltip, we'll do that. So this affects the tooltip. Okay, let's try that. See whether. Okay, like yeah, there it is. So you see, when you hover, the information that's shown is now the color is changed. So that's what tooltip is. So here is tooltip. We can add details to tooltip. And there's a lot more you can do with the tooltip. So we will have more to talk about tooltip later on. But for now, this tooltip is something that is not visible in the initial, as a default. So you have to hover over a cell for the tooltip to show up. So that's what that is. Okay. And title is that. So it changes the title. Right? So these are the fonts for default fonts for different sections of the worksheet and the entire worksheet as well. Now total, again, see, depends upon, sometimes some totals will have a pane, some totals will not. So here if you change the header, okay, see all the totals, header is changed. Okay, all the totals, subtotals and totals. Okay. Now when you change the pane, okay, so inside the pane you have the, okay, so header is the label, the pane is the actual values of those totals. Okay. Same with here, grand total. So now the subtotals are not included, only the grand totals are included. And grand total pane is that. Okay. So this is for the sheet, and then you can set font for the rows. So the worksheet pane, the rest of it is dimmed, and only the header would be for row header. So these are the rows in the text table. So header, right? Again, total. Okay, let's go row totals, and again here the grand total, so row grand total, like that. And similarly, you have a column. Okay, so if you do that, that column will be. So this is very easy to use, and you can experiment with this and see what gets affected. So you don't have to memorize all of that. You just, it's all right there, and you should know where to look for. And then it's just a matter of using your own creativity to make it look good. Okay.